Let's just talk about the ICE talks real quick. Again, Democrats feel they've got the public on their side, and they feel like Republicans are going to have to give in on a bunch of these things. Haima, where's your sense of the talks? Thune and Johnson seem deferential to the White House negotiating with Schumer. Is that going to produce a deal?
Yeah, I think so. Look, if I were the White House or if I were President Trump, I would try to neutralize this as quickly as possible. I mean, I think Larry's right earlier. The vast majority of Americans, Republicans, Independents, and some Democrats are pro-immigration policies that control both bringing people into the country and also getting people out of the country who came here illegally. That's just a fact. I think what's happened over the last few months, we all know this, the things that have happened in Minnesota, well, starting in California, kind of sweeping across the country, stopping in Chicago, and then culminating in Minnesota, have just taken this off the rails. And most people, just like the child separation policies of the first administration of President Trump, people just do not feel good about that. They don't feel good about people dying who are sovereign Americans. They don't feel good about kids being taken from their families or whatever, however you perceive it. And so I think President Trump and Schumer want to get to a place where that's just ceasing to exist and Minnesota's just calmed down. And also, if you are the president and you're a Republican, you don't want this to be an issue in the midterms. You want to take it off the table as quickly as possible. And the time by which we have to accomplish that is waning by the minute. We're getting into and I'm not trying to be overly political. I know people lost their lives. I know this is a very serious issue. But this is a midterm year, and we are getting into the primary season of the midterms right now. And so I think the president and Schumer want to both take this off the table in a way that's going to be thoughtful. And look, if you are Amy Klobuchar or that sort of Democrat, you want to be able to run your own race as well. And so Amy Klobuchar can't really run a race for governor with all of the noise around her right now. And so I think it behooves everyone. The problem is on the Democratic side, and we've been hearing this for a very long time, it's like sort of defund the police. There is a wing of the Democratic Party that want to bring up sort of, defund ICE, eliminate ICE, abolish ICE. And what we're seeing in the polling and we're seeing colloquially, and I think we all agree to this, that's probably not a winning issue. And so the internal fight right now is, what's the messaging? Is it sort of letting Schumer get a deal and sort of having these real specific constraints on how ICE operates? Or is it moving toward an abolish ICE, talk about it every day, put the posters up, message around it? And I think that's probably a losing fight. So over the next 2 days, 3 days, that's going to be a big part of how Democrats are going to be having their internal communication. Where do we say? Do we want ICE gone, or do we just want solutions? Because you've heard from some senators who are saying, look, it's just not logical to eliminate an organization that has served a purpose for the last 20, 30 years. And so, I don't know how it's going to start out, Mark, but I do know that it could get a little testy on the Democratic side because there are some strong feelings.
Larry, again, our colleagues will continue to monitor Homan, so we'll come back in or we'll show you something on video if he makes news or says something else compelling. Larry, I can see a deal between Schumer and the president that could get 60 votes in the Senate. I can't see such a deal passing with a lot of House Republican support. And so we may be in a position where Johnson's only recourse is to let the Democrats provide the votes to pass it. Is that realistic on this issue?
Well, I think you're right about the temperature in the House. I was struck by Speaker Johnson's remarks yesterday. He was unequivocal. Yep. They're holding the line on everything, and considering he's just got that one-seat majority. You just mentioned that Homan should be in the room with Schumer and Trump. He basically will be, just based on this performance right now. Homan's going to loom large on all of this right now based on his ability to embolden Republicans to sort of stand with him. If he says, no, we're not going to put ICE agents in danger, they should be able to conceal their identities, that gives Republicans cover, saying, listen, I'm going to defer to the expert here, and this is necessary. It really depends on what the details of that deal is. But as Jaime just pointed out, I think the real danger here for Democrats is something that they often do, is overplay this. And ultimately for voters, the issue comes down to, are you on the side of law enforcement, even though law enforcement makes mistakes and they're not always pristine, or are you on the side of the angry mob? It looks like Democrats are acquiescing and trying to accommodate the people on the streets rather than people who wear the badge, and that doesn't always play well when it comes election time.
If you're doubting, perhaps, of whether Homan remarks are endorsed or supported by the White House, don't. The White House War Room is tweeting out very rapidly sound bites from the stuff we just watched, the announcement of the withdrawal of the 700, the announcement of the cooperation by state and local, and Caroline Levitt is retweeting the War Room. So they're on board for this quite clearly. One more thing on immigration, then we'll move on. And again, if you're hearing the conversation and want to be part of the conversation, raise your hand. Wall Street Journal has a story, 104. One of the bylines on it is Josh Dawsey. We've told you before. He's very well sourced in the White House, very well respected. So typically, when he writes a story about the White House, they don't attack it as fake news. It's a profile of Stephen Miller. Here's the headline: as Stephen Miller stokes Trump's boundary-pushing impulses, the White House aide has been an architect of aggressive immigration sweeps in U.S. cities and deadly boat strikes in the Caribbean. He's extremely influential. I've said before, if you think Stephen's influential and you're based that on what you read about it, including stories like this, he's more influential than the stories suggest. He's not quite prime minister, and he shares power with Susie Wiles and the vice president, but he's very influential in foreign and domestic policy. However, there are 3 paragraphs in this Journal story that contain what I believe is the first presidential criticism of Stephen. Trump has told friends type quotes saying, Trump has told friends, Stephen screwed this up, or Stephen's over his skis on some things. My view of it is Trump will say bad things about Ivanka. Like Trump offhand will complain if somebody's doing something he doesn't like, but I don't believe this reflects a growing unhappiness. And I think Josh Dawsey agrees from the way the piece is written, because if it were real serious, he would have led with it. But instead, it's buried in the piece. So Jaime, thoughts on Stephen Miller's role going forward at this point, particularly on immigration?
Yeah. Look, I think you're right. I don't think the president is sort of seeding any seeds of doubt in Stephen's leadership. I mean, I think as a devout Democrat and someone who just does not enjoy his policy perspective and his position on almost anything. I mean, I wish he would go, but I don't think. I think he's served. Look, he has served the president well. For 2 terms, in between the terms, he's been there by his side. He's helped them shape these policy strategies. He's helped him expand his perspective outside of America and just give him some credence in international policy. And so I don't think the president's going to send him anywhere. He's an intelligent man who is obviously very, 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 very much there for the president of the United States of America, and very much so there for the MAGA movement. And so I don't think he goes anywhere. But someone put in the chat, and I think to go back to sort of the overarching issue for Democrats, I think accountability is something that Democrats really want to see on the front lines of this ICE and local battle. And so I agree with Larry. I think we all want to feel safe, and we all want to make sure that we are protecting those who protect and serve us. But I do think there's some accountability that's not involved with the mob or with the chaos of the protests. Like, that's just like common sense accountability. And so I think what we have to get back to, and I hope some folk like Amy Klobuchar and some of those individuals like that, they're black and white facts, and they're things that are just sensible. And we got to get back to some sensible thought on how we address this. Where I think we're way far gone. We're not going to stop this. We're not going to abolish ICE. We just have to be sensible about how we approach these deportations, and also how we approach, allowing people to come in this country legally.
Larry,
on Stephen Miller is Jonah Hill in Moneyball. I met him over a decade ago, and he has spreadsheets in his brain and immigration code, immigration law, and the entire history of immigration statutes in his brain that he can reference. You can see his eyes working almost like data from Next Generation. He is a savant when it comes to all of the numbers, all the statistics, and all of the immigration laws. He was like that when he worked in Sessions' office in the U.S. Senate. And just like Jonah Hill's character in Moneyball, he's got all the facts, he's got all the numbers, he's got the answers when Brad Pitt points to him at a meeting, but he doesn't always have the best delivery. He doesn't always have the best bedside manner. And if Trump is criticizing him on something, it may be because his instincts aren't always right on with regard to the political nature, because he's not a political beast. He's a practical guy. He lives and dies for this issue, and he knows the facts, and he is invaluable to Trump in that White House.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
and don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.